Okay, so I was. Thank you, Mike, for letting me interview you.
Sure.
It's amazing to have you around, and
Happy to be here.
I knew that you were from APC, but I never knew that you were one of the founders. The other day when we were talking, I was amazed by the story that you were telling me, and I actually would love to share that story with the rest of us community networks to understand how our movements, our social movements around the world can work together to get to build the world that we want to build. So, can you briefly share a little bit about APC history,
Sure.
so everyone can know?
All right. Well, I guess the thing was that this all happened before there was the internet. So all we had were these bulletin boards, dial-up systems that were independent of each other. They weren't networked. So if you wanted to communicate with people, you had to find their particular bulletin board, dial that bulletin board, and access the information there, or send a text message to them on that system. So what happened was that there were really three systems that evolved independently. There was EcoNet PeaceNet in California, which was set up by the Institute for Global Communications, and GreenNet in London, and the Web in Canada, which is the one that I helped set up. And each one had their own mission. So GreenNet was mainly focused on environmental groups, and IGC in California had joint peace, human rights, and ecological focus. And the Web in Canada was started by an environmental NGO. It was in fact started by the Ontario Environment Network, which was an umbrella group, all of the small environmental NGOs in the province of Ontario in Canada. I ended up there because I had gone to postgrad school in a small town near Toronto called Guelph, and then I ended up in Toronto after that, and realized that we could really make use of this technology to ensure better communications between all of these organizations focusing on the environment. So we set up a 286 PC with, I think, 512 kilobits of random access memory, and we installed a version of Unix at that time called SCO Unix, Santa Cruz Operating System. It was a fairly cheap commercial version of the original AT&T Bell Labs Unix, and it was pretty buggy. It was going down all the time, but we connected it to the packet switch network, the X.25 system. And then we also had a bank of modems for people in Toronto to dial in. The strength of the networking in North America was very strong in the local area, because remember in North America you have free local calls. So people in Toronto and people in San Francisco could spend the whole day online for nothing, which was quite kind of unusual. But each of these systems were independent of each other. They didn't talk to each other. We would occasionally make long-distance calls or use the packet switching network to connect directly into those computers. And the interesting thing was that PeaceNet, EcoNet, and GreenNet ended up with the same old style mini computer called a PDP-11, which was donated by a community in Scotland called the Findhorn. And so they were able to start the first, they'd patched together some of the dial-up software that was in place there called UUCP, which stood for Unix to Unix copy. So they were able to start connecting the discussion groups on particular topics, and to be able to exchange email with each other using these rather sophisticated modems in those days called Trailblazers that did 19.2 kilobits per second, which we thought was so fast. So they would dial each other a couple of times an hour to exchange messages, and then managed to get some funding to convert that system to the PC level, because the problem was not everyone could afford these mini computers. So we got a call from Jeff Sears at IGC one day at the web saying, we've got the support to help you connect directly to us, and maybe to start an association and broaden this to bring this kind of low-cost networking technology to other countries, other interested people in the NGO community that wanted to support their members with better communications. So we prototyped that networking system on the hardware we had at the web in Toronto. And from that moment on, it was amazing, because we actually started to communicate. We could send, anyone in Ontario could send a little message, and it would reach the user in California, or the users of the system in California, or the users in London on the GreenNet system. The thing was that the phone calls cost quite a lot. And we had to actually develop a special compression program to compress all the data into one package, which cut our phone bills by about a third. And then, having made sure the system was fairly bulletproof. In those days, of course, these machines hung. I would go into the office at 2 o'clock in the morning because someone called me up and said, I can't send my email or whatever. And we'd have to reboot it and try and debug what the problems were. But they worked quite reliably enough that we got 400 or 500 users on them within the first year. So then what we did, we came up with a plan to go and help these local organizations that we had been working with in other countries. Many of them actually dialed into the web in Canada or into GreenNet from other countries, including from Cuba. In fact, the Cubans couldn't connect to the American system, which was closer. They had to route all their traffic via Canada, because Canada didn't have the same sanctions with Cuba that America did. So I went from there to Australia to set up what was called Pegasus in those days, which was the APC node for Australia. Some friends went to Nicaragua to set up Nicaragua, similarly to PeaceNet Sweden, and also APC was the NGO in Brazil that set up a system called Alternates. So that was really the core machines that we brought up as the original part of the Association for Progressive Communications, which was in the end, I think, constituted as a formal organization in 1990.
So all those things just for us to end our the astonishment of all this adventure. When all this happened? Because you said you finally founded APC in 1990.
Yes.
When all this happened?
Well, I think IGC and GreenNet had started in about 1985, 1984. And we got the web in Canada running in 1986. So we were operating independently, and then when we started networking them in about 1987, late in 1988, I think. And then we kind of came up with this plan, and in 1989 was when I went to Australia to set up the system in the small town of Byron Bay.
Okay. Well, Mike, you are a hero, man.
Well, it's
Thank
been
you
an
for
interesting journey so far, and I think we're almost coming to the same kind of cycle with community networks as the next level of this whole diversification of access and a new level of connectivity with people.
Definitely. Well, thank you for sharing this part of our own history with us, and thank you for being for us all this time, and hope that this inspired more people to be the leaders that we need for our organization for the following years.
Thanks, Nico. Happy to help, and if there's anything else I can do, please let me know.
Thank you.